So in the last couple of videos, I've discussed the one-on-one meetings, which are regularly scheduled. And I did them every week. You can do them as often as you need to, but I would recommend no more than 2 weeks apart. The team updates, which I did every week because I thought that was extremely helpful for us to stay on top of it because we were moving fast on a bunch of projects to be able to get it done in the timeline that I mentioned earlier, which cut the projects in half in terms of their delivery time. And finally, the last one is actually not a regularly scheduled meeting. These are meetings that are scheduled because there's a particular purpose. These are project meetings that are specific to the projects because we didn't want to take up the time in the team update meeting to go into them in detail, and we don't really talk about them in the one-on-one meeting. The project meetings must be specific to the project, so they only arise when they're needed. Now, there may be a season where you need a bunch of project meetings. There may be a whole season where you don't do a ton of them because realistically, each of the individual divisions or teams is actually working on something and they don't need input outside of their own little team or individual project. When these project meeting comes up, though, here's what I recommend. Number one, the project owner, the person who's driving the project, the primary one, is the one who schedules the meetings so that they can run the meetings. As the leader, I didn't run those meetings. They weren't my projects. Now, I could say all of them were my projects, but these people were driving that initiative, that goal. So what I asked was, if you're going to drive the meeting, you're going to schedule the meeting, and the other key is you're going to clarify what the meeting is for. This helps them before they start scheduling the meeting to know who to put in the room. Why are these people here? You say, well, how do you know who to put in the room? My answer is you need to put as many people in the room as you absolutely need and no more. Do not fill a room with a bunch of people just because, well, this person might have an interest or this person might have something to say. You fill it with exactly the people that you need and no more. Don't overfill the room. Don't overpopulate it because usually in those cases, what winds up happening is you get off track on the project and move on to other things. Now, this is key. When you're building out these project meetings and someone starts discussing another project or tries to interrupt it because it's got a clear purpose and it's got a clear objective, you need to say that's something we need to talk about either in the team update meeting or in another project meeting. Stay on task. If the leader, if the person who is running the project does not keep it on task, you, as the boss, need to say, I think that's a really good idea, but I want us to stay on task on this project, and we'll schedule another meeting to talk about that. If the project leader won't do that, which they will learn to do over time as you show them by example, you as the leader, as the manager, need to say, it's okay, that's a really interesting thing that we're talking about, but that sounds like it's another meeting. Let's stay on task. The person who's running the project meeting needs to clearly present the opportunity or the problem, the issue that they're working on, and usually do that before people get there so they've had some time to start thinking of it. I often encourage when people send out an invite for a meeting to me that in the notes they tell me with a clear purpose, here's what I'm trying to do and here's what I'm planning to work through in this particular meeting so that everybody comes in thinking clearly about what we're trying to accomplish. Then we can take the time to actually discuss the solutions. And usually I actually think it's helpful if they give you a little bit more time, lead time, in those notes, in that invitation to start thinking of solutions before you get there rather than waiting for the group to get together. I don't think traditional brainstorming works. And I'll talk about that some other time. But what seems to be most effective is when each person starts thinking up ideas before they come to the meeting, and then they bring their ideas together and see if they have synergy in that space. And then finally, they need to clarify the contingencies that are happening. So for instance, if you're working on a project and I actually need a designer to come over and help with this, but that designer's taking up in another project, they need to clarify those contingencies, which may mean you as the leader need to help free up resources or clarify schedules and priorities so that they can make sure that they're getting those things done. These project meetings are the practical meetings that most of us would sit in all the time. So I'm not probably telling you anything much here you don't know. What I am saying is that they only become clear once I've done the emotional work in the one-on-one meeting and the practical high-level work of the team meeting with the updates. Now I know why the project meeting exists. Without doing all three of these in a system, what you wind up with is moments where you feel like you might be playing therapist, but maybe it's just not, I'm connecting on a human level, but I'm not actually getting movement toward a goal. Or I'm getting movement toward a goal, but I'm not actually getting the emotional component, or I'm not getting down-to-earth practical steps. So I got emotion and I got high-level strategy, but I didn't get into the tactics. The tactics are the project meetings. Whichever kind of meeting is there, that's the kind of meeting that you need to do, but they only make sense in terms of the totality of all of these meetings. These two meetings over here help you make sense of the project meeting, because now you know where the frustrations lie because you've heard about the emotions, and you know the bigger picture and the prioritization that comes from your direct reports to understand all of them together. Now you have context to have the project meeting and make really good decisions.